Good evening and welcome to the September 10th, 2025 meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. We have three meetings this evening. We have a Public Works Committee meeting, a Sustainability Committee meeting, and a Building and Planning Committee meeting. Before we start, we ask that you silence your cell phones. There's amplifying equipment available for those who are having difficulty hearing. The room is also equipped with telecoil technology. And later, when the floor is open for public comment, we're first going to take comment from those of you who are in the room, then we will turn to anyone who is attending virtually. We ask that you introduce yourself and say where in the township broadly you live before starting your comments. If you're in the room, we're going to ask you to use this podium to your left. With that, let's start our first meeting. That's the Public Works Committee, and I recognize its chair, Commissioner Whalen.
Thank you, President Summer. We have three items on the agenda tonight. This has been a very controversial one that we've dealt with so far. We're now moving on to the public hearing on the intent to discontinue, abandon, and vacate Bliss Street. So I am going to be opening this public hearing to review, discuss, inform, and receive public comment on the township's intent to discontinue, abandon, and vacate Bliss Street and a small section formerly known as River Road from each of the Lower Merion Township municipal boundaries with Conshohocken Borough to the end of the dead-end cul-de-sac, a distance of approximately 815 feet. So, Jesse, could you help us figure out where we're at?
Yeah, sure. So good evening, Commissioners. Let me first start by giving you a little bit of background about where Bliss Street is located. So I'm just going to pull that up here on our screen. Bear with me 1 second. All right, so it should be popping up here. Just a second. So Bliss Street runs through West Conshohocken and Lower Merion. So it's kind of at the northern top of the township. And to get to Bliss Street, you actually have to leave the township, kind of work your way through West Conshohocken, and then down onto Bliss Street. And so what you're looking at here, this red line, is kind of the demarcation point between Lower Merion and West Conshohocken Borough. And the section that's owned by Lower Merion Township begins approximately just a little bit past a parking garage. And now it's not totally clear here, but the whiter area represents a parking garage. And that's the address of that is 226 Bliss Street. And then let me zoom out a little bit here. All right, so it's a little bit too much. So here's, if you look up at this kind of smaller picture up here, gives you a little bit of context. The site is just south of West Conshohocken. You can see our portion of the road starts here and then extends and dead ends in Gladwin. So, obviously this street is kind of isolated and orphaned compared to the rest of the streets. Though this wasn't always the case, Bliss Street, formerly known as River Road, used to run along the railway, but was cut off at some point in the 1940s and 50s when the expressway was built. As it stands today, Bliss Street has been brought to the township's attention on multiple occasions throughout the years, mostly due to complaints of overgrowth and untidiness. And staff have determined that this section of the roadway provides no benefit or use to the township. If the section is to be vacated, the underlying land would revert to several properties on Woodmont Road, and those properties are 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10, and 14 Woodmont Road. And another portion of the street would revert to Norfolk Southern Railway. It is important to note that all of the properties located on this portion of Woodmont are owned by a single property owner. And as Commissioner Whalen mentioned, the portion that is being proposed to be vacated is approximately 33 feet by 866 feet. And one last thing to point out here, and that's there is a portion of the street, you may be able, so in your handouts, there's a map as well, so you may be able to see it a little bit better on there. But there's a portion of Bliss Street that we are proposing to leave dedicated, and this was done so that we're not creating a landlocked set of parcels. So with that, I'll turn it back to Commissioner Whalen.
Thank you very much, Justin. Is there any questions? We'll start with public comment from the floor. Is there any public comment from the public? Please.
So anyway, my name is John Wolheim, and I am one of the owners of Wolheim Real Estate Investments that own all those Woodmont properties that align this property. And the only comment I have is I'm not sure what that right-of-way set-aside dedicated piece would be, and also whether or not I'm not sure whether the addresses of, we own 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Woodmont, but 7, 8, 9 Woodmont are part of a parcel that's actually part of 14 River Road, and we also own 12 River Road. And so just for identification's sake, they're not called Woodmont, they're not really deeded as Woodmont Road, they're deeded as River Road. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Jody, anyone online?
No one's on.
No one online. All right. Well, that was fairly unexciting. That will close the public hearing. And with the closure of the public hearing, I'll ask if there's any other commissioners who have any questions or comments. Go ahead.
So I'll just comment briefly as the ward commissioner. I've had a chance to take a walk down there, and what has been said is accurate. The property, the street kind of dead ends, and in fact, when I was there was some heavy equipment, presumably belonging to one of the owners down there, that was kind of in the way. But I understand from our Public Works Director that each of the properties has access from Woodmont Road, so it isn't like we would be foreclosing access to anyone. This is really taking a burden off the township of maintaining a piece of street that just seems to have no other use. I would also note that neither Gladwin Civic Association or myself have heard any negative comments from anyone in that area about what we're being asked to approve tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Grimes. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, I think we can move right on to the second official item tonight, which is the seeking authorization to advertise an ordinance, Chapter 107 official map, formally vacating Bliss Street. So I will start by making a motion. I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners authorizing the Township Secretary to advertise notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to amend the official map of streets of the Township of Lower Merion, adopted pursuant to the provisions of the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 107, entitled Official Map, to vacate and abandon a portion of that certain right-of-way known and designated as Bliss Street, AKA River Road, 33 feet wide, from Old Crawford Road easterly, the distance of 866 and 26/100 feet, more or less to its termination in the Township of Lower Merion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Grimes. Jesse, I think you can just stand there and wait for all the questions that are coming your way. The deluge is here. I will ask if the public has any questions or comments. Seeing none. Jody, anyone online?
Oh,
Seeing-
one, but no one has their hand raised.
All right, hearing none. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? All right, in that case, all those in favor, raise your hand. Jody, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And now on to, thank you, Jesse. Now on to the final item for this evening, which I'm sure will be equally controversial for all of us. I will move the board and recommend the reappointment of, excuse me, Timothy Keneally to the Shade Tree Commission for a 5-year term, such terms to expire March 2030. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none. Jody, it's our online,
No hands raised.
no hands. Any questions or comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Gay?
I seem to say this every time we have an appointment or reappointment. I have the honor of chairing our ad hoc nominations committee, and I'm just, on behalf of the board, entirely, incredibly grateful to all of the volunteers on our advisory board committees. They bring so much expertise to our township and time and effort that they bring to these roles. We have a reappointment in each of our 3 committees. I will make this comment now on behalf of all 3 of the committees and all 3 reappointments. So thank you to all of the volunteers on these committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. And with that, I will call it to vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Jody, it passes unanimously. And President Sinai, that concludes the Public Works Committee for the evening.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Whalen. Our next committee for this evening is the Sustainability Committee. I recognize its Vice Chair, Commissioner Gilda Kramer.
Thank you. There are 2 items on the agenda for the Sustainability Committee tonight. The second item on the agenda relates to proposed gas-powered leaf blower regulations, and this is an informational item only, and there will be no discussion about it this evening. The discussion on this issue is scheduled for October 8th. The action item on the agenda is a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the reappointment of Daniel Sutton to the Environmental Advisory Council for a 4-year term, such term to expire in April of 2029. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any public comment on this motion? Nobody on Zoom?
No.
Okay, any commissioner comment? Okay, then I will make some comment. I've had the pleasure of working with Dan Sutton, who is a passionate environmental advocate and who has done an excellent job as the chair of the Environmental Advisory Council, and so I fully support his reappointment. If there's no other comment, I call for the vote. Is everybody in favor? Please raise your hand. And Jody, that's unanimous also. That concludes the business of the Sustainability Committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Kramer. And just to echo something that Commissioner Kramer said, we occasionally have these for information-only items show up on our agendas, like we have for leaf blowers. Because as you've noticed, these agendas come out the Friday before Wednesday meeting. And if we just put something on there that's of broad public interest on the usual weekly cadence, then people would get it on a Friday and they'd have to show up on Wednesday to comment on it. And so somewhere along the line, some residents of this township suggested to us, hey, maybe you could just put it out a month in advance, and then we could have a month to digest it, and then it will happen in the next month on that cadence. So this is kind of our move to transparency, give people more opportunity to form opinions on the things that we think is going to be broad public interest, and that's why it's handled that way. Our last committee meeting this evening is the Building and Planning Committee. I recognize its chair, Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you, President Sinai. So we've got 11 items on the agenda. Let me just note, in accordance with what President Sinai just said, that number 11 is just noting the release of the proposed ordinance about changes to the noise ordinance, and that will not be discussed tonight. So if there's anyone here for that, you come back, and please come back in a month. The first item is the escrow applications. Would any commissioner like either of these to be considered separately? Okay, so I'm going to move to consider for recommendation to the board, to move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to release funds held in escrow as improvement guarantees in accordance with Section 135-7 of the Township Code for the following: 260 Rock Hill Road, CVS Pharmacy Development, escrow release number 2 for $220,438, and 450 West Lancaster Avenue, Haverford School, Crossman Hall, escrow release number 3 for $18,414. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. Is there any commissioner questions or comments on any of these? I will just note quickly for myself concerning the Rock Hill Road item, the CVS. I would just want to note that the CVS is in charge of maintaining the Kinwood Trail parking lot down there, and they have recently done a lot of work there, and it looks pretty good. So I don't pretend to think anyone from CVS is watching this, but I certainly appreciate what they've done to maintain that entrance to the Kinwood Trail. So is there any public comment on either of these? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. We will now move to number 2 on page 10 of the agenda, which is the authorization for the Friends of Shafla Plaza Public Space Enhancement Request. Chris, would you like to make a brief presentation?
I don't have to have a presentation, but I have a quick explanation.
Okay.
The Friends of Shafla Plaza and the Ardmore Initiative are here to actually explain the project. The township has numerous friends groups throughout that we utilize to help with libraries, to help with public spaces. Many of the commissioners might be aware of the Friends of Linwood Park or the Friends of the Kinwood Heritage Trail. These groups are formed, and they form nonprofits, and they provide supplemental programming, maintenance, and amenities. There's been a group that's been formed, the Friends of Shafla Plaza, and they've expressed an interest in the existing Shafla Plaza. What we're talking about tonight is just the area that is the existing Shafla Plaza, not the hypothetical future potential developments in the parking lot. This is a little area that's between Bella Italia Pizza, the coin shop, the existing parking lot, and Lancaster Avenue. There's a bus stop there, a couple benches. What that group has gotten together is to look at that space and said, can we activate it better? It was put in several years ago. It is heavily used. There are many people that take lunch there. There are people that wait for the Ardmore Music Hall in the evenings and such. And this group has said, can we, in the effort to create better public space in Ardmore, can we better activate that space with fresher furnishings, different plantings, move some things around? So what they've asked tonight is your authorization to redo that space a bit with some new equipment to move some things around. This has been vetted by township staff, by Public Works. Planning has looked at it, Parks and Recreation. There's really no cost to the township. This is really something being taken on by the Friends Group. An explanation of that and the plan is in your packet, but there's members of the Friends of Shafla Plaza who can explain it more in detail.
Great, thank you. Any commissioner questions or comments on this matter? Yeah, oh, please, Vice President Kramer.
It's okay to do this before public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody that was involved in this. It's really exciting to see groups coming together to do something positive for the community on their own time. Thanks to Craig Timberlake in particular for leading the effort with Friends of Shuffle Plaza, Ardmore Initiative, and Ardwood Civic for its support as well, in addition to Public Works and Building and Planning staff. Thank you all for doing this. It's really great to see people taking pride in our community, and I think it's just great that it's such a low cost, no cost to the township way to improve our public space. And I want to give a shout out to the Ardwood Civic for its work with Public Works to beautify the fountain at Ardmore and Lancaster Avenues. It looks gorgeous, and I hope to see more efforts like this, so thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment, Commissioner comments, pardon me.
I've got a question for Chris. So friends groups for our parks are a wonderful way that our parks are better maintained and have enhanced features and do such great work. Friends of the Kenwood Trail, the garden workers at Sharp Park, there's so many examples. And this sounds like another example. But this is an unusual site because there's a plan that we saw a year ago, and I guess we're going to see again. So help me to understand, and I think you mentioned briefly, are these completely independent of each other?
Correct. So the plan that you saw, this is not to confuse what you had already seen.
This is a little less expensive than the plan we saw a year ago?
A little bit,
Yes.
yes. But these are the existing, Shuffle Plaza was something that was put in when the township took possession of the old trolley site. There used to be a trolley turnaround where the parking lot is today at Shuffle Plaza. And according, going back, and I've talked to previous staff from 20, 30 years ago, it was really something that was put together with a very small budget in an afternoon. Can we just activate that space? And it was, it's the one downtown space in Ardmore that's there today. When the larger project came forward last year, there was a lot of interest from the business community and also from residents of the area, and there was real interest in, can we activate our downtown? And this is a group, the Friends of Shuffle Plaza, that took that on and said they believe in the larger project, which they'll discuss when that comes forward to the board later this year. But they said, well, can we just make things better now? Why do we have to wait for the future? It might take years for that project, if ever, for that project to go forward. Can we make what we have more efficient? And they said, let's look at that. Let's look at how people use the space, better understand it, and I think that's what they're looking at doing something today. This is consistent with, I think, what you would call tactical urbanism. It's a small, fast, cheap improvement to the built environment where you don't have to have multi-million-dollar projects. You can do things that are fast and quick and start to enhance the public space, with the goal of encouraging people to use it, more people to sit, more people to enjoy the business district. If you get a slice of pizza or an ice cream cone, you have a place in Ardmore to sit, or even just someplace nicer where you're waiting for the bus.
All right, I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stevenson.
Thank you, members of this committee who are volunteering their time. I do have a question, Chris, in relationship to this committee. How does that impact, do they have, I guess the question is, do they have full reign in relationship to what goes in and what the aesthetics are? Who has the oversight of that?
Well, ultimately, the township does, and you being the legislative body, ultimately, you do. This is so, the public space, that's why this is a request from the Friends Group for your authorization to make those improvements. They've worked through staff's made the analysis that there really is no impact upon township finances, and that the planned improvements are consistent with what we've been trying to do in downtown Ardmore.
I guess the question I was asking was, as this moves forward, if there was a change, if they said they wanted to bring in a new series of benches, is that something that the township, your office oversees requests for changes for anything that they want to do for improvements?
Yes and no. So downtown Ardmore has layers of help. Not only does it now have the Friends of Shuffle Plaza that are focused on one specific area, the Ardmore Initiative is empowered and authorized by the township as an agent of the township to do greening, security, public space amenities. So there's a bit of an overlap here between the roles of the Ardmore Initiative that the township has authorized the initiative to do, and then this Friends group. But ultimately, it's a partnership. I mean, every week or so, staff is talking to the director of the Ardmore Initiative. So it's a partnership. As things come forward, if the township looked at this and said, we need more benches, we need more trash cans, some of the things that we have helped in downtown Ardmore are the big bellies, those big trash cans. That's something the Ardmore Initiative doesn't do well, but the township does. But by not putting in that furnishing, it frees up some of our staff to really focus on some of the other parks themselves. And this is something that the urban spaces are being done by the Business Improvement District and then in conjunction with this subgroup.
So I'm glad to hear that the Ardmore Initiative is part of that, and that's great. What I didn't hear, and I'm hoping that there is somewhere connections with the business organizations, like the Ardmore Business Association, that they have some type of connection, some kind of way in this?
I'm not privy, and that's the director of the Ardmore Initiative is here. He can actually explain any conversations with the Ardmore Business Association. Primarily, through our experience, we've been dealing one-on-one with the Friends of Shuffle Plaza, who initiated this request, and then we just have regular conversations with Ardmore Initiatives, because they're really the ones that are tasked with the public greening, the public safety, and the public cleanliness, as opposed to Ardmore Business Association, which is an independent organization of business owners who do promotion and other enhancements to the district.
Good evening, Commissioners. If I can steal the mic for a second, and I'm actually going to ask one of the representatives from the Friends Group to join at the other mic and just kind of give it a little bit of frame of reference. Whereas, you know, this is a request that originated outside of the township. As staff, we provided feedback to this Friends Group, who independently, working with the Ardmore Initiative, came up with this request, inspired by our previous design that we discussed here in this room for Shuffle Plaza. And since this is a township-owned property, right, you all as the Board of Commissioners ultimately have to say yes or no whether they are supportive of this idea. But I'm going to actually ask...
Excuse me, since I'm chairing the meeting,
Yes.
I'd prefer that we finish with questions and comments, and then we can take some, we're happy to take, and please forgive me if we have a procedure.
Yes. I
can deal with
apologize,
that.
Commissioner, but
Yeah, thank you.
to sum it up, really, you know, the level of engagement with the wider business community, that is something that the Friends Group would have better info on, because this is their request and this is their plan.
Thank you. So, as we just heard, if any other commissioners who haven't spoken yet have any question, okay, Commissioner Woodring for either, Mr. Were you not finished? I apologize.
It's a rare occasion. I'm going to talk more than 10 words here.
You still have the floor.
So, first of all, I want to thank Chris for giving that explanation. And I wanted to thank the representatives of this group for the work they're doing. Vice President talked about the fountain. You saved us a lot of money by putting those flowers in there. So thank you for that. But I just want to say that it is important that we use the representation of these groups to the work. And the reason why I brought up the business community piece is that as we move forward, that we figure out a way how to bridge that. And I don't know how you're going to do it, but I have all confidence that you will, because all those groups, the community groups, those independent groups like yourselves in the business community are going to be vital for the longevity of this Ardmore community. So thank you.
Sure, thank you, and again, excuse me for...
So I'm not going to say anything else tonight. I'm good.
All right, are there any other, Commissioner Woodring, you have questions, comments?
Oh, no, just a comment. So, you know, I'll obviously want to follow the lead of the Ardmore commissioners, but I think this is an excellent opportunity for kind of what you can look at as an interim intervention, and one driven by the community and the community groups. this is a growing movement, if you will, in, industry adjacent to my profession that has yielded like successful results elsewhere. And so I think it's an excellent way to not only provide the community input and collaboration, but it's also an excellent way to kind of spur up new ideas. And maybe they're not ideas, long-term ideas for this space specifically, but it's something that we can then look at as a precedent for other spaces throughout the township. And so any way to stir up ideas to how to activate our public spaces is a great opportunity in my opinion. So I will wholeheartedly support this. And I'm excited to hear from the group themselves about how they came to this design. So thank you.
Commissioner Courtney.
Thank you, Commissioner Rose. I'm a big fan of this as well for sort of two reasons. One, I love the efficiency of this process, like to be able to make incremental change, improvement in the community quickly, having the change done by the community in coordination with our business improvement district. It's a great way to sort of lead a path, which brings me to the second reason why I'm really a big fan of this, is it's going to start the transition of this space from parking lot car storage to a meeting and gathering space. When we've approved major multifamily development in Ardmore, we've talked about the benefit of the feet on the street, right? But you need somewhere for those feet to go. And people will drive to our businesses and they'll park in these lots, but people will now walk through town, have a spot to meet up, have a place to sit, have a place to eat. It's the starting of a gathering spot. It's way more interesting to me when someone says, meet me at the park versus meet me at the parking lot. And it really is changing Ardmore from, at least the center of Ardmore, from being automobile scale to being human scale. I'm a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of the future of Schaffel Plaza, and I'm excited to see this moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Now, if the gentleman from the committee, if you'd like to make a few comments, you're welcome to do that. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. So I am Craig Timberlake from Ardmore. I am one of the members of the Friends of Schaffel Plaza that initiated this project. We got funding from Better Block Foundation, which is a nonprofit out of Texas that helps communities do placemaking projects in their locations to quickly and iteratively improve their places. And that was the idea behind this. I mean, Chris put it very well, as did Commissioner Woodring. The motivation for this was to make a change that we could make now with the community's involvement from the bottom up at a low cost and a high impact. And I think that's what we're doing here. I just want to also thank everyone who's been involved with this project so far, which has been very, very widespread. Deirdre Murphy is the artist that's going to hopefully be installing the mural. It is beautiful and original. Kate Cronin from Wynwood is going to be installing plants that have been donated by Lower Merion Conservancy, who has also just been a great partner in this, as has our Ardmore Initiative, and Tired Hands as well. So if I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
So thank you very much. So yes, if any commissioners have any questions now for the organizers, you're welcome to ask them. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So now we'll go for public comment, if there's anyone who wishes to make public comment on this matter.
Hello, I'm Nina Greberman from the Ardmore Business Association. Nothing against improvements. I think the only problem is we do have a disconnect. Disconnect between the businesses, the township, and the initiative. I only heard about this project because 3 businesses contacted me and said, what is this? What's going on? I don't understand. No one said anything to us. Bell Italia hasn't been spoken to, Mainline Coin hasn't been spoken to, the 3 other businesses that contacted me. We want to have a seat at the table, we want to bring everyone together, and we want to be part of it. Craig, who I just saw for the first time tonight, hello, one of our board members reached out to him. We're going to have a liaison, it's the beginning. But there is a huge disconnect between the businesses, AI, and the township officials. And I don't know how else to put it, and we all want to cooperate, just ask for a seat at the table and hear them out, because this is a business district. And none of these businesses, especially the ones that I know that are the closest to Shawful, are leaving. And some of this, you know, I don't think what they want to do in Shawful will hurt them. We'd like to see the plans, because in a month and a half, we're going to put up the holiday tree. So if they're going to put lights up, they may need to be moved because our tree is very tall. And also, I don't want to drive over, have a truck drive over a beautiful mural and possibly hurt it. And if I wasn't contacted or I'm not staying on top of things, we wouldn't have no idea. We just, you know, show up one day and be like, oh, look what happened here. You know, so all we ask is that we all cooperate. Everybody has a seat at the table, and all I hear is AI Township. AI Township, Friends of Shawful Plaza. The Business Association, we're here, we're strong. We bring thousands of people into the district, into Ardmore. They come, we have our big event coming up next month. Just, we're here. Just, you got to acknowledge us and the businesses. That's all.
Thank you.
Good evening, Alec Hirsch, Ardmore Initiative. I just want to come tonight and clarify a couple things, but primarily to express my full and unequivocal support to this project. As has already been said, I've worked with Craig for the last month or so, collaborating with him to clarify these designs. We speak frequently as earlier today, working out a maintenance plan to ensure that the work that is done in Shawful Plaza is maintainable and will remain to look nice in perpetuity. But I also just wanted to clarify that what we're talking about is not a permanent solution. It's not a permanent improvement, right? As Chris said, it is a tactical urbanist project, meaning that it is in many ways quite temporary, right? These are not capital project improvements. These are not concrete related. It's the addition of some seating, it's the addition of some planting, and addition of some asphalt paint, concrete paint. That paint is the most permanent part about this. And I think an important part of this conversation is that it remains a conversation in that this is kind of an experiment, right? We want to see what demand is like. We want to see what people want and how they want to experience their space. So, you know, we're going to put out some bistro tables, as we already have, and see how those are used. We're going to put out some Adirondack chairs and see how those are used. And if those are not being used as we expect them to be, then we can come back to the table and say, well, what other kinds of amenities might better fit this space? But other things like lighting are meant to better illuminate the space and make it more enjoyable and safer at night. The paint is to add a pop of color, make it look a little more attractive to people walking through. The initiative has done a number of things over the last 3 months to try and drive traffic to Shawful Plaza, one of them being 2 new bistro tables, which anecdotally get used, I would say, more often than the benches that are there and have been there for some time. We've also brought live music to Shawful Plaza. So trying different things in this, what I'm referring to as an experiment to see what works in Shawful, and I think this is a really great step forward. I would also just add that in trying to select what kind of amenities went into this space, the Friends of Shawful Plaza did also publish a public survey which went live all over social media. We put a QR code, I believe, out throughout the district. So there was quite a bit of public input in this process as well. We are planning to remain, as I've said, a support for Friends of Shawful Plaza, as we have been in the past. And so going forward, if there's anything that the project needs, we do intend to remain involved in the project. So I appreciate you all listening today and considering this issue. And I hope for a more lively Schaffel Plaza going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello. I probably don't need this, but I'm Brandy DeRosa. Maybe I do need it. There you go. I'm Brandy DeRosa. I am having trouble with the microphone. I am the Vice President of the Ardwood Civic Association, and I'm just here tonight to read a statement a joint statement from the Ardwood Civic Association and the Ardmore Progressive Civic Association in support of the Friends of Schaffel Plaza Better Block Revitalization Project. So the Better Block method is a bottom-up, community-driven, low-cost, and temporary. It's a great example of citizen engagement, which has created excitement and opportunities for more people to get involved. Downtown Ardmore lacks high-quality third places, and Schaffel Plaza is an ideal location for the project. The Ardmore Civics are willing to continue to partner and support all the Friends groups in this endeavor, as well as with ongoing maintenance. On a personal level, as someone who has engaged in research before, I just love that it's sort of a pilot project. It's fully funded. It doesn't take away from any future plans for the space, but kind of can show with what some small amount of money and some determined and resourceful people can do when, a space is being underutilized like this, in our opinion. So we wholeheartedly support it and just wanted to make sure that that was known. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this matter? Okay, seeing none. Anything else from any commissioners? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed?
You didn't make a motion.
Oh, there was no motion.
You approve it anyway.
Sorry, I will make a motion.
Do the staff recommendation on the motion.
The staff recommendation
Make that.
right here, on what's on the agenda, right?
Well, the staff recommendation is a little different than the header on the agenda.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
For that.
Thank you. I will move to recommend that the board approve the request to allow the public space improvements in Schaffel Plaza with the condition that they're maintained by FOSP and the Friends of Schaffel Plaza and the Ardmore Initiative. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Courtney and Vice President Kramer. Anything else? So we'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Next is we have the first of two matters concerning 1 Belmont Avenue in Ballackinwood. Just some initial comments for my colleagues and for the public. There are two separate matters for reasons of the way we do these things that we have to consider them separately. If we'll start with the conditional use application, then move on to the preliminary land development plan. Chris is going to start with some comments, and then if commissioners, of course, have the opportunity to comment on both of them, as do the public. You can make comments on both. If you plan to make a comment on conditional use, I would just request that you don't make the exact same comments for when move on to the preliminary land development plan. But you have two bites at the apple, I guess, if you're here from the public and want to make some comments. So let's start with the conditional use application. Chris, go ahead.
A couple slides to help illustrate where we are. So we have two applications before us tonight. It's kind of a bifurcated application that we're going to see tonight. The first is a conditional use recommendation to hold 107 parking spaces in reserve. And the second is a land development plan. And where are we talking? We're talking about this property over on the gateway to the township coming in on Belmont Avenue into Lower Merion Township. So what I have is a bird's eye view looking back towards Philadelphia of the site. This is what was formerly referred to as the GSB site. It's a very iconic mid-century modern office building. It was one of the first office buildings in City Avenue district. It has surrounded by a sea of parking. In the back, there's a small parking garage. There's some underground parking that most people aren't aware of, but it's really defined in the front by this large sea of asphalt. In 2012, the township enacted the City Avenue special City Avenue zoning. And in that zoning, it was the encouragement of filling in these underutilized parking lots with new uses, new buildings, pathways, landscaping, offices, commercial aspects, and residential. We're seeing some of that development over the years. This site came forward for a development about 5 years ago, and it was approved for close to 250 units, a supermarket, some other street-level retail, a public gathering space, and a lot of amenities. That project ultimately proved financially infeasible. The applicant is unable to build it. So they've come back to still activate the site. So in order to do this, they're coming back with a land development plan to put in some street-level retail, public gathering space, and some other improvements. To do that, they would like to reserve some of that parking that they have. Looking at this picture is probably taken on a Sunday. It's not taken on a business day. But if you looked at it just during a regular workday, many of these spaces are underutilized. And what the applicant is asking for, and you're allowed to through our code, is to hold some of that required parking for all of these uses in reserve, to take it out of operation, and then if it's proven that they don't need to do that through conditional use, they can just hold it there. If it's ever needed at a time, the applicant would be required to install it. That's the conditional use application that you have before you. If that parking is granted, if that request is granted, this is the land development plan that the applicant would like to proceed with. At the bottom is City Avenue, to the left is Belmont Avenue, and to the top is St. Asaph's Avenue. The yellow boxes are new proposed retail buildings. Restaurants, the corner is a bank, the top one is more of a I believe a full-service food and beverage area. The green area at the top is a public gathering space, very similar in size to what we have over at Suburban Square, an activated lawn, what you call public gathering space. There's a lot of new landscaping that's proposed for here, pathways, trails, much wider sidewalks than are there today, multi-use trails that run through this. The plan is also a key element of this is a new roadway. One of the things that's required in the City Avenue District is the City Avenue District has an official map. And when individual parcels are developed, there are improvements shown. There are multi-use paths around the outside edges, but in this case, what we call West Road is required. The idea there is to break up large auto-oriented blocks into pedestrian-scaled blocks, and then buildings would front along that. This is that first piece of that. So the lower end of West Road to City Avenue, bounded by Belmont Avenue, becomes more of an activated area. The reserved parking garage is proposed and held where that north parking lot is. If that parking garage is ever required, you would come in and build it right on top of that. And you would have to have ground floor commercial spaces and be activated that way. But right now, it would still remain as a surface parking lot with additional greening that's along there. So what's proposed in just quantity-wise? Looking at about 18,000 square feet of commercial area, one-story buildings, but one-story buildings that are almost 30 feet tall. They're 28 feet tall. They will read as much more monumental buildings. They're not going to be traditional highway strip buildings. These are going to be much larger. There's also a third of an acre of public gathering space, that big green area that's there. There's two areas. There's green and then the blue that's underneath it. The blue is new stormwater management's coming into this site. This is a very big site, very big parking lot that has no stormwater management. It was developed before stormwater management codes were enacted. This is a way to reach back, get that stormwater management that should be on this site. And then you'll see other green spaces that are through here, other patio areas. What the applicant has done is, and this has been going on for about a year, and they've been refining their plans, looking at areas where you're going to have food and beverage, people can gather, people can sit. Those tan OSHA boxes that are on this plan are patio areas. They're designed for people to have bistro tables, benches, other areas that people can gather, have lunch, come in the evening, have dinner. One of the potential advantages to this is also currently this parking lot is the home to the Bala-Cynwyd Farmers Market. Many people have been to the Bala-Cynwyd Farmers Market. It's a farmers market in a parking lot. We try to pretend that we have a big public space. Everybody makes the best of it. Well, here, if there is a big green space and there are benches, there are trees, or landscaping, that farmers market will be in this public gathering space. We've had many conversations with the City Avenue District throughout this conversation. This is at their front door. The City Avenue Special Service District, whose offices are in 1 Belmont. This would be the area that right now they would logically activate for movies, for other sorts of events to draw people from the district, through the district to here. So this is what it looks like today, and the applicant has provided throughout the process some renderings. And this is what it's proposed to look like. You would see there's new buildings and the massing of these buildings. And this is really just to show the relationship of the new buildings to the landscaping to the existing site measure. So the existing parking lot closest to St. Asaph's Avenue would stay as a parking lot. I will say it will be a little greener because there's the addition of some street trees in there that don't currently exist. So you try to get some canopy trees to soften the existing area. There's also a lot of greening along the edges. There is currently some greening. Some of it might be removed to make way for this, but there will be additional greening put in. You'll notice along the edges there's a lot of greening along Belmont Avenue. Many people are aware that PennDOT is trying to figure out what to do with that intersection of Belmont and St. Asaph's. The applicant has kind of been caught in the middle of that. They've had to go back and amend their conditional use. That's why this was originally intended to be brought to you back over the summer. PennDOT had issued a letter. They're trying to make sure that whatever they decide, that they leave the maximum space to make those improvements. They might make smaller improvements, and if the smaller improvements come in, there'll be a lot more green space along the edge, but still there will be a wide verge, a very wide sidewalk, additional street trees, and then the greening around this parking space. But working way back into the development, you'll see the 3 buildings that are here, and this is actually, I think, a little bit better view. There'll be large buildings along City Avenue. These are 1-story, but tall 1-story buildings. They'll read closer to 2-3 stories than just a single story. They'll be open. The applicant's only proposing to have uses on 1 floor of it, but they'll be big monumental type of buildings. I think more in their character is something of this building, or something that you would see the Aqua building out in Bryn Mawr. They'll have more of that character to them than just a standard highway strip building. You can see the relationship of the public spaces, the landscaping, parking. There's more improvements in those parking lots to encourage pedestrians to go through. The sidewalks are much wider, and the relationship. The applicant has been working on enhancing and really refining the landscaping. It's a very rich landscape plan. It doesn't always translate well at this scale. There are multiple levels of landscaping, from the perennials and shrubs that are proposed near the verges to the layers of street trees that are in the verges. There are landscaping and trees, flowering trees, columnar trees very close to the buildings. There are shrubs. There are a variety of plants that are shown in containers and also in many beds. It's a very lush landscape plan that's there. Let's see what we have. Just wanted to reinforce the importance of this City Avenue official map. This was the planning document that guides and required that new road and that public gathering space. The area that's highlighted in red is this parcel. So when this developer came in, he's indicated by that asterisk, that he's required to put a public gathering space in. And he's also required to put that road in. What we're seeing now in the last 10, 15 years since we've seen development in City Avenue, we're seeing a combination of these public gathering spaces come in. It's hard when you get one development at a time. You know, you really have to have faith as a planner and faith as a developer to see these things come in. But what we're seeing now with this development and what's happening across the street at the Bala Cynwyd Shopping Center with their public gathering spaces coming in, and you'll be seeing a modification to that by the end of the year, of ways you can activate that. How can we activate these spaces so existing residents can walk to these spaces, new residents can walk through them, business owners and people who work in these offices can be there, really a 24/7 mixed-use environment that has places for people to gather, that's also very attractive, that keeps the township's commercial base vibrant. That's the intent of this. And these are just some more of the detailed drawings that were provided by the applicant, showing some of the relationship of the outdoor gathering spaces. There's a lot of landscape architecture that is part of this. That's just not the building, but these are pergolas that are there, integrated with the benches and some of the landscaping and the amenities. The applicant has spec'd, and the landscape architect for the applicant has spec'd a fairly high-quality set of furnishings, of trash cans, benches, and some other site elements through here. The applicant is seeking a waiver of the tentative sketch requirements for this. This application has been, it's been before the township for a better part of a year. It's never reached you before. It's gotten to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission makes recommendations on conditional use.
Can we just, tentative sketch waiver is in the next part of this, is it not?
I'm just giving an overview.
I just want to be clear.
Sure.
Clear. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
If it's helpful, if I can just give an overview of everything and just the action. But this has been before the community for a better part of a year, and we realize it's just never made it to the board. Every time it comes to the board, it's been tabled or it's gone back to the conditional use officer. But the neighborhood club has viewed this, many neighbors have been participating in it, and there's been a lot of public interaction at either the conditional use hearings or the Planning Commission where this has been. And then I can come back when it's the land development and with some recommended additional conditions. But if you have any questions about the overview of the project, I'm happy to answer those.
Okay. So thank you. What I think I'd like to do, just for efficiency, is if the applicant wants to make any comments, because I think it might be important in this situation to see if commissioners have questions to ask either Chris or the applicant's attorney. So, Mr. Brosman, if you or someone else wants to make some upfront comments.
Yes, thank you. I was just figuring out which podium.
Yep. I know for a first-time visitor to our boardroom, it's confusing.
I just went there for so many years. So.
Yep.
Hi, I'm George Brosman. I'm here with Rich Gottlieb, who's a township resident, a principal at Keystone, and the project team. Rich can go over the project and why he got to this place. As Chris mentioned, the prior project that was approved, it actually had 272 apartments and a larger amount of retail space. And unfortunately, in that plan, the farmer's market would have had to go away because one of the tenants had objected to it. So they really like that project, but I know some in the township might be pleased that now we have a project without more apartments and certainly less traffic. With regard to the conditional use, I wanted to take just a few moments to go over the numbers on the reserved parking. The amount of retail space and restaurant that's being added is, it got slightly reduced from what Chris had. It's 17,315 square feet. So a pretty small amount of space compared to the property and the building. That only requires 66 parking spaces. The parking that you saw on the slides will be way more than 66. Of course, that will be shared with the office, but of course in the evenings and on the weekends, the office is busy and we're not so sure that, or is empty. We're not so sure that that picture you saw was on a Sunday. We think, we don't have the exact date, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was during the week. But as Chris mentioned, the ordinance, the City Avenue District Ordinance says that if an applicant wants to add any building, all of the requirements of the City Avenue District are triggered. So as Chris mentioned, that meant that the applicant had to take some of the parking up and propose the 2 new private roads, and the applicant had to put in a substantial amount of public gathering space. So right there, a lot of the existing parking is taken up, we think, for a good thing. So that's some of the parking, basically, that makes up the need for the reserve space. Coupled with that, the applicant did a lot of extra things that the township had requested that took away more parking spots. In fact, when we were in front of the hearing officer the first time, before we had the PennDOT comments and whatnot, we only needed reserved parking of 65 spaces. PennDOT asked the applicant, as Chris mentioned, to widen, to pull everything back from Belmont Avenue, leaving space for possible future road improvements. The township staff asked for a lot more greening on the entire property, including the north parking area. So at that time, we only had a request for reserve of 65 spots. This has now gone up to 97, which still isn't a lot, given the overall size of the property. But that just shows you the applicant, by adding more greening, leaving space for the improvements, the request went up for the amount of spaces. And we asked for a 10-space cushion in the reserve amount because we don't know if PennDOT will make more comments, asking for more spaces to be removed. So a study was done, our traffic engineers here, and the key to getting a reserved parking conditional use is to prove that you don't need the parking. And the conditional use hearing officer report that you have shows, she finds as facts that the evidence showed that the parking is not needed. Rich can tell you he's very confident that the 97 spaces will not be needed. He would tell you that even before COVID, there was a lot of extra space in that parking lot. So it's really a reserved parking request to reduce some of the parking for the office, even though the code doesn't look at it that way. The code just addresses the whole property, but that's why I wanted to point out that the new uses only require 66 spots, and there's a couple hundred surface spots that will be on this property. So the applicant is quite confident that the reserved spaces will never be needed. I would like Rich to explain why he's doing this project. We were good with all of the recommendations of the hearing officer on the conditional use. The issue that we had was the one that I wrote a letter about on Monday, about the suggested condition that financial security be posted for the reserved parking structure. And my letter explained, why we don't want to do that, but we don't think it's feasible and don't think it should be required. We think it would basically end the project, and Rich can explain that in a little more detail than I did in my letter. But I wanted to go over the numbers, and we could have Pete from Traffic Planning and Design. I wanted to show you how small this really was and try to give comfort that we don't really think this reserved parking will ever be needed. So the code's requirement of a covenant to do the reserved parking, we think provides enough practical guarantee that it would be done. The other thing I would ask you to keep in mind, if it ever came to needing more parking, there's so many things that could be done besides the reserved parking that we've shown. Things can be done with managing of schedules. Space could be converted in the office building. More amenity space could be added, more bathrooms could be added. So the practical need for parking could be adjusted in so many ways, but there's a high level of confidence that that reserved parking will not be needed. And it's one of the reasons, since it's in the code, we're only asking for, I believe it computes out to about 15% of the parking to be held in reserve, where the code authorizes up to 50%. So we made a very conservative request. So we would just ask that that condition not be adopted requiring the financial security. Is now the time you would like to hear from Mr. Gottlieb?
Yeah, so assuming that, Mr. Gottlieb, that you'll be available if commissioners have questions, this would be an appropriate time if you want to make some comments. If you don't have to, if you don't want.
Yeah, I think it's important, Rich, if you explain how you got to this point and why you think this is a important project for the property and the City Avenue District.
Thank you. Rich Gottlieb. President Keystone has been in front of this board, a number of times before, some new faces and some recognized spaces. But we've been working on this project, as George said, as Chris said, for many years now to try to activate the corner. We had a very robust project. We had partnered with an extremely competent, well-regarded regional, national developer, and the world completely changed on us, and it's just not feasible. We had tenants who wanted to be there. It doesn't mean that people don't want the project or wouldn't, but it wasn't financially feasible. And while I don't like to talk about money in this type of situation, but the reality is you have to invest, someone has to invest money and some lender has to lend money, and it's got to make sense to them. So we pivoted. We live here. We want to see that enhanced. We want to see the site better. So we talked, my partner and I, and we talked about doing a scaled-down version. It's a scaled-down version, yes, but with the requirements of the zoning, with the requests of staff, it's going to feel like a monumental corner. We're working, and we've come a long way on design, but the requirements of the zoning code are pretty intense, and we're going to be fulfilling them, and we're going to be creating a lot of public good here. Place and event. I actually think this will probably be the public gathering space that would get most use of any in the township. Just be given the location. It's a nice flat area, a nice wide open area. Events happen nights and weekends. There's an office building on this site. Office buildings are empty nights and weekends, and so we can really handle nice events in the township as well, not just a farmer's market, but like we were saying, a concert or something that may draw more people. And then we would love to see that happen. It would enhance the thing. We're also looking to protect the asset we have there, which is the office building. The office building, we've continued to appeal taxes because that's our fiduciary responsibility, but the value has gone down just as every office building. This execution would create amenities not just for the community, but for the asset itself. And I would expect it to be used by everyone around there. We have a walking environment. We want to create the walking environment. This does. It starts the connection of all the trails, the trail system. I was highly involved in all the zoning that went on this, spent many nights here. This was the plan, to create a walking environment. We've complied. We tried to, sometimes to our detriment, say yes as often as we could. We've said no before too, and sometimes it went well, sometimes it didn't, but we all worked together. But we said yes, and which is pushed. You know, it's not that huge a site. It gets pinched from multiple sides. So George talked about, for this conditional use, where the parking, how some of the reasons it's ended up. But please understand, this is our business. We're willing to put money into this. We don't perceive any risk for this parking. That is our perception. And we're willing to put our money behind it to make it happen. So I think that's really where it goes. And, I think parking, I've probably built a half a dozen parking decks in my life, at different projects in different parts of the country, and I have yet to see anyone park on the roof. It has never happened. It's just, so, parking requirements are nice, but they're not always, the parking isn't always needed, is kind of my point. So, and then the financial, it's not feasible for us to put that down. If there's this additional security or whatever, it just probably, unfortunately, remains a parking lot for many, many years to come.
Okay.
Any questions?
Well,
or-
thank you. We'll take questions for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Gottlieb. So good. So what I'd like to do now, if commissioners have questions, since we've heard from everyone at this stage, if you have questions or wish to make comments in addition to your question, one moment, Commissioner Stevenson, unless you're asking about, okay. So, questions or comments can be made. I only say if you ask questions and make comments that you don't ask for a second round on this matter. But you can ask for Chris or for Mr. Brosman or for Mr. Gottlieb. So, Commissioner Stevenson, why don't you go first?
I was going to say anything else, but I feel like I'm compelled to, because I think Attorney Brosman was talking about me when he said some people would be happy that they were not in apartments, and you're correct. I'm very happy if there's not, and I will support this. I think it's well designed. I think that the open space, and it's very thoughtful, and I think that it's a good project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernhardt.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I have a question, maybe, and I don't know, Chris, if you're the one to answer this or not, but potentially I missed it. When we're talking about the reserve parking structure security, what are the terms? How much is it? I mean, did I miss that's in here? And
You did. I may refer this to our township solicitor. Township solicitor is a little bit more familiar with this condition than I am. All I will say, the township has flexibility, but Matt, do you want to chime in?
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, the way in the underlying hearing, there was no testimony given as far as the cost of the structure or anything like that. So the condition that was proposed by the hearing officer, I should say consult with their office and we work with her on it. It's open-ended, so it does not set what the amount would be, what the structure would be, or what the term of holding that financial security really would be. So what's contemplated is that if you were to adopt that condition this evening, at some point between now and final approval and recording of the land development plan, the applicant would come back potentially with those cost estimates, be presented to the Board of Commissioners, and at that time you could decide, what exactly is an appropriate amount of security to be held in this case.
well, I can appreciate from applicant's standpoint, there's some open-ended process of saying, we're going to agree on something at some unknown time with some unknown terms, the amount, the conditions, and I would have difficulty trying to approve something from this standpoint if I don't know what it is. I'm not sure procedurally why that information wouldn't be on the front end of asking this board to impose that upon an applicant. It may be the proper thing to do, and I'm not saying that it is not, but without knowing what the terms are, it's very difficult. If we were to find easily some analogy in our own life, you wouldn't agree to, doing something in your own home, but not knowing what the cost was and how long it was going to take for you to pay for it. So help out if you can, Chris, or yourself. What can we do on the front end to try to figure this out so somebody isn't potentially saying they may have to write a blank check here for some unknown period of time? I mean, for example, if their projections are correct and the parking is not needed, do they get this, whatever this is, back? How is that triggered? I mean, I unfortunately can go on and on with a bunch of scenarios that are coming through my mind. So what could we do to get this information on the front end of making a determination that reserve parking structure security agreement or condition would be appropriate?
The short answer is I don't think you can at this point. I mean, you need to act based on the record as it's been developed, and that information is not part of the record. Legally, you can impose reasonable conditions on the approval, and so you can approve as part of the condition that some security be provided, and we're comfortable with you deferring that to some future point in time. But at this point, there's no way to get that information into the record this evening before you have to act on it.
So what would option B be, Plan B, as opposed to having this open-ended form of approval?
Sure, and let me sort of put some of it in context.
Please.
As you know, people don't always like talking with attorneys because we look for problems and try to solve them, and so it becomes a little bit like Chicken Little. I mean, to put this in perspective, if the parking structure is never needed, this is much ado about nothing. And likewise, if the time comes where it is needed and the property owner is able to build the structure at that time, likewise, this is moot. What this is about is a scenario where the parking structure needs to be built and the property owner is either unable or unwilling to do it. Potentially that falls on the township to take some sort of enforcement steps. You don't have to adopt this condition. You just have exposure then that if that were to ever come to be, potentially the township would have to be the one to build the structure, and there's no guarantee that you could recoup the costs. So I think you sort of have three options. You could modify the condition and you can set specific terms this evening. For example, modify it to say that the money will be held for 5 years, 10 years, at amount to be determined later. You could adopt it as is. Or there's also, if you feel compelled, you don't have to accept the condition at all, and you can approve it without that.
Right, and then, and I hate doing this on the fly, it makes me very uncomfortable, but are there not, and I'm outside of my normal zone of comfort, with an attorney hat on, but are there other options that we would be able to impose whatever this cost is upon the property owner and the property itself if we needed to go forward with this to make a requirement? And then what would then happen if whatever dollar amount we said to put aside, we say, all right, the fund has got to be $10, but we find out it costs $15. Do we still have to be able to go after the property owner? I'm really struggling with this, people. So.
You were
go
asking
ahead.
a question, weren't you?
Yeah, right. I think that I'm trying to find out what we can do in order to have the protection if the additional parking is required without having this amorphous concept that we're going to say, all right, we're going to figure out the terms later, but we're going to agree to impose it.
The standard protection that we have today is what we've used with reserved parking in the past. There's a requirement and there's a covenant that's required as part of this approval that the applicant would install reserved parking if directed by the township zoning officer. Right? So if there's ever a need for that.
And if they refuse to do that, we can go to, compel or in some fashion to have it done.
There are all those legal
costs
remedies.
And get a lien and sell the property or something of that nature.
But it's always, it might not be as black and white as being characterized. It might not be a parking garage or no parking garage. There could be 5 spaces that are needed, maybe not 100 spaces. And there are instances where maybe there are flexibility of adding compact cars and readjusting some of the parking garage, adding other parking on the site. It would begin with a negotiation with the applicant to try to find that. And I think the first person who would probably come to the township would be the applicant. The applicant would say, I have this property, I'm having trouble leasing it, I need to put more parking on. I don't think I want to jump to this whole parking garage. Can we find more efficiency on my site?
Okay, I'll ask one more question, then I'll yield, because I feel like I'm taking too much time, and, I leave that to Commissioner Stevenson. So, no, seriously, what do we normally do? I don't recall a situation where we've had a reserve parking contingency of this nature.
We've reserved a lot of parking in the township.
No, we would reserve parking, but not that we would have a security fund.
Correct. This would be the first time the condition like this would be imposed. And in my knowledge, we've never had to instruct an applicant to construct parking. Most of the time, when we go through this lengthy conditional use process, the applicant's required to put on a lot of testimony, a lot of boring traffic engineers talking about why you don't need the parking. Those calculations have held up.
Okay, all right, I said I would only add one more comment, I lied, one other. If this is the first time are we doing it, why are we doing it now?
That's a question for the hearing officer. That was, the condition came from the hearing officer, not from staff.
Sure,
All right, thank
and
you.
again, but I consulted her on it with her. The reason is, given the scale of the structure we're talking about, often reserved parking deals with parking lots. You know, you've got open space that's being preserved until a parking lot's being built. This is a multi-million-dollar yet-to-be-built parking structure controlled by a private entity rather than, you know, the school district or someone else. So in consulting with the hearing officer, it was sort of flagged as a potential vulnerability for the board to consider.
Okay, all right, thank you all very much. Commissioner Grimes, thank you.
Thank you. President Steiner.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Grimes. You know, I've had the opportunity to exchange a bunch of emails with the township solicitor about this earlier, and so you know, Commissioner Bernheim, you know, said a lot of the you know, had a lot of the same thoughts that I had. I've had the luxury of having thought about it earlier, and so let me take a little bit of a stronger position, and just keep in mind that what we're talking about, if you're following along, is under the conditional use hearing officer's order. Item B says the applicant shall provide to the township reasonable financial security in a form and amount approved by the Board of Commissioners, which may be adjusted from time to time based on market considerations, and which shall be held until the parking structure is completed and improved, et cetera, right? And these are the hearing officer's recommendations to us, which we can choose to or not to adopt. And I am not in favor of adopting this item B. And I just want to explain why. And I think you know, again, you know, as a bit of a background, right? We do these things by conditional use. We have these conditional use things because, you know, the zoning code, if it were just rules, like those rules don't apply well to every parcel, right? And conditional use gives us the ability to use our judgment about saying, should we apply the rules exactly in certain places? And it gives us some limited discretion, right? That discretion is what we're being asked to consider here. And so the question is whether the site needs all the parking to be required by the zoning code, and if not, we're allowed to hold some in reserve, right? To be installed later if it is ever decided that it is needed. In here, as Solicitor Hovey said, you know, if the parking got installed, it'd be kind of expensive. What do you do about that? So the difficulty I have, the first difficulty I have is, like, while this concept of reserving some money sounds good in theory, in practice it's like really hard to implement, right? So the first is, like, what would you do? You escrow the entire amount that would cost to build a parking garage in case you needed it? If that were the case, you just build the thing, right? So you wouldn't do that. So we're talking about some money less than that, or some period of time that's shorter. If it's some money less than that, well, how would we ever decide what the right amount is? And what would that meeting look like? And how long would it take? And if it was some period of time, like, what is the window by which you would say, oh, well, we're going to decide we no longer need it, we've gotten convinced, right? Right now, I'm pretty convinced that we don't need it right now. We're not going to need it for, you know, decades. But, like, what is the window? So it becomes very hard to execute as legislation, right? Even though, like, I appreciate the idea. And then one looks, as Commissioner Bernheim did, to other ways to enforce this. The second is, you know, we need to do an evaluation about where the parking is needed. You know, I'm in the camp of I don't think we need the parking on this site. You know, the reserve parking, there's plenty already. There's, with the hearing officers, 250, 300 empty spaces. This takes away some for stuff that the township wants, and builds on some of them and adds 66 additional places. But the main reason is that parking limits to a degree are like self-enforcing, right? If you are renting office space to an office tenant, they want parking, and they want to know what parking they have. And we see this at 123 Bala, where we've run into all sorts of issues where the tenants are like, wait, like by contract, I have rights to all sorts of parking, and it's constraining like the kind of building that can be done there, because you're sort of contracting over the parking, right? So if there isn't spaces and you don't get the tenants, right? So like, I think the incentives are aligned here for providing enough parking. I would be concerned if there were additional, if this were in a residential area, and we were concerned about parking spilling over into residential neighborhoods where people can't like defend their property rights, right? But this is not in that location, right? This is on City Avenue. Commercial landlords across the street have every ability to tow cars that are not supposed to be there. They can defend their property rights. They can put that butterfly thing on the windshield. There are ways to defend it. And so I don't think we need to do that. I think the risk or the exposure to the township is minimal, that we actually ever need the parking, makes the juice not really worth the squeeze of going down this financial covenant kind of thing. And I do think we're looking for, a successful business environment happening here. So that's how I see it. Hopefully that was clear. Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Pence.
Thank you. Let's, Commissioner Rossman.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Thank you, President Sinai. I agree with what President Sinai has suggested. I live a quarter mile from this property. I've watched the development. I had a great dream of a supermarket, a complete complex, and bike paths. I don't think it's large enough really to accommodate all that. And I agree with Commissioner Stevenson for a change. The fact that it's probably better that we don't have any residential there. We have enough residential going up at this point. But I would certainly like to make the comment, I would love to see a couple good restaurants, not just fast food, Chick-fil-A type places, where people would come and park for several hours and enjoy some dining there, and maybe would have parking spots. But when I drive past the Carr Barth building, which used to be the GSB building, it is mostly empty spots. I can pull in there diagonally, cut across that parking lot any time of the day or night, and there's no laws for parking spots. I haven't counted them, but I doubt we'd fill up all those spots, including the tenants in the building and then the restaurants. And of course, the bank might attract some attention to, one or two depositors. So I would really encourage a canopy of trees, good landscaping. If we can duplicate what Chris has shown us in the drawings and have something that's a positive for the neighborhood, a positive for people across the street and the new buildings to come across and sit in the shade in the summertime and have something to eat or drink and enjoy that space, I think it would be a positive. So I would agree. I think B in the conditional use should be eliminated. So I would, when the time comes, I would like to make an amendment to that.
Well, would you like to make a motion now?
I'd like to make a motion now, yes. Thank you so much for that invitation, Commissioner Grimes.
Okay.
May I make a motion? Or?
I thought that had made it.
No, I did not make the
was going
motion.
to second it.
Oh, okay, fine. I'm going to make a motion to accept the conditional use, but eliminate paragraph B. That was read by President Sinai.
To accept the resolution.
The resolution.
Of the conditional use hearing officer, except for paragraph B.
You say it so much better than I.
Sufficient, Township Secretary?
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Is there a second? Commissioner Gilda Kramer, okay. Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Rossman. Commissioner Gilda Kramer, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, I have a number of comments and questions. I agree. I go to this location pretty often because it's also very close to my home. And I really would have a hard time saying that there's not excess parking there right now. There's a lot of excess parking. So much excess parking that I've always been disappointed that the farmer's market that was thriving at that location was forced to move. And I think it's going to be a good thing to have the farmer's market come back to this location. The The concern that I have a couple questions and concerns. One is that I was at the board meeting of the Neighborhood Club of Bala Cynwyd last night, and they were expecting a presentation on this. And I'd like to know whether or not this was ever brought before the Neighborhood Club on another occasion.
Do you want me to answer that now?
If you don't mind coming up
Yes,
to
I
the...
wouldn't mind an answer to that.
Yes, I just wanted to get permission to come up. We met with directors of the neighborhood club. I checked today because I got a call today from a township resident late this afternoon saying, hey, I came to the neighborhood club and you were on the agenda. Where were you? And I said, Rich and I didn't know. So I went back and checked my notes. We met with them, some of the directors of the neighborhood club at the property on October 28th of 2024. When we went back to the Planning Commission in it was either May or June, one of the Planning Commission members suggested that we reach back out to them. So Rich had reached out to his contact there, saying we're available to get together again. Rich was away last week, asked me to follow up again, and I did. We didn't get any notice. I did receive an email as I was sitting here saying that the gentleman that I emailed had sent me an email a couple of days ago, but I don't have it, or I lost it or missed it. So it was presented to them. I did send the president an email saying that we're willing to continue our dialogue with them. At the time we met with them, there was no concerns expressed, but we've worked closely with them, so we will continue to meet with them. And we're very sorry we missed showing up last night, but I did not know about it.
Okay, well, I will just pass on some of the concerns that were raised at the neighborhood club. There were concerns, a lot of concerns related to the architecture, and that there needs to be perhaps more work on that. And the broader concern is one that I share, which is that this is a lost opportunity. While this project is better than what's there now, because the giant parking lot is kind of not terribly attractive or terribly beneficial to the community, that this is a lost opportunity in terms of what would really improve the City Avenue Special Services District. And I disagree with some of the other commissioners here. I thought that the original plan was a very nice plan, an excellent plan, that would have been something that would have really added to the community. And this, fast food restaurants and another bank, to me, doesn't do much of anything for the broader community or a lot for the City Avenue Special Services District, except maybe providing a place for people in the office towers to go to lunch. So, to the extent that there can be a rethinking of how this can be improved, I would encourage it. And those are my broader general comments. So I probably won't say them again later.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners who have not spoken up yet? Seeing none, I will make some comments. I am planning to vote for Commissioner Rossman's resolution with the exclusion of subsection B. I do want to note a few comments. I would have preferred the original proposal that Keystone made for this property. I suspect that Keystone may have preferred that. But I recognize this is a very important corner and gateway for the township. But I realize that financial things have changed and the market has changed, and we're not going to get that project, and certainly Keystone has no obligation to continue to offer it. And this project otherwise is largely zoning compliant. subject to the conditional use that we've talked tonight. I will say, and by the way, I should also note, and I think it's clearly demonstrated by the drawings that Chris showed us, this is a large improvement from what is at that intersection right now. And I look forward to the public improvements being completed, which will make it look much better than nothing, since you own the building now, nothing personal to what's there now, but it will look that much better. And I look forward to that. I will note that I do have concerns about the parking. I am okay with waiving the parking security, but I would note that although we are just talking about parking on this property, and that is appropriate for tonight because this is all that's in front of us, in a more global view of that part of the township, that corner of City Avenue and with up to St. Asaph's and Belmont Avenue, there's a lot going on. There are a large apartment complex that is going up across the street from this property that will cause many more people than are there right now that will presumably need parking. Again, not the responsibility of One Belmont, but is something that needs to be considered. There's the Chili's property, which is empty now, but I would not expect that will be empty forever. Currently in the City Avenue Shopping Center, a lot of that parking is used. The parking lot is very hectic and busy, and I would note that when they built the Delson behind the shopping center, a lot of the spaces back there have been reserved for tenants of the Delson and are not there for general public use. So that creates, and if that's done at the Lord and Taylor property as well, that's going to create, the parking has to go somewhere. All of these, and by the way, I'll also note that the owners of the City Avenue Shopping Center have applied to add another restaurant along where the corner bakery is, which will presumably, if that's approved, and I expect it very well might be, that may cause some minimal but additional need for parking. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't believe it's fair or correct to hold that against this development. I do think that it's something that is a township, and in conjunction with the City Avenue District, it's something that people should think about, because at some point, maybe it will, maybe it won't. I hope, Mr. Gottlieb, your building is filled up so it's completely occupied, and all the parking that, we don't need more parking than you're going to get now, but there's nothing extra. It's just something to think about, because I don't think the parking situation is as foolproof as maybe it seems today with all of these with the empty Chili's and the other things not being completed. So having said that, I am intending to support this. Unless any other commissioners, we will go to public comment. Is there any public comment on this matter? Okay, is there anyone? Okay, there's no one online. So we will call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. I'm sorry?
The amendment?
This is as we only have it with, as you put it, Commissioner Rossman. So I see no one, anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. So we'll now go to the preliminary land development plan. Chris, if there's anything that you would like to say on this one that hasn't been said already, go ahead. By the way, this is on page 91 of the packets.
Just with the approval. During the discussion of this project, much of the public comment was really about those qualitative elements. How are people going to enjoy this? There was a lot of comment about the landscaping, a lot of comment about architecture along the way. This is a difficult architecture in that the City Avenue District discourages strip commercial development. It doesn't really want you to put in a one-story pad site, a fast food restaurant or so. So to that end, you can build a one-story building, but it has to be 28 feet. It has to not read like a one-story building. That's a very challenging design element, and through this process, the applicant has received a lot of comments from the staff, from the county, from the public about what should that be. Should you try to make it look like a two-story building, even though it's only a one-story building, or should it make it really look like a big one-story building? The applicant has wrestled with this. There's been a number of comments. They've come back with some revised drawings, and that's been reviewed by staff, and we'd like to propose some conditions that would memorialize that simplified view. So I'd like to propose 2 new conditions and then just clean up a couple of the conditions, and also remind the commissioners that the applicant is seeking a waiver of tentative sketch.
Okay. Are the conditions you're going to go over on this sheet?
Correct.
Okay, fine. Go
So
ahead,
I
please.
provided these to the Board of Commissioners ahead of time. There's copies out on the front desk. New condition A refers to the architecture, and it requires that the proposed architecture shall utilize the following material palette. Walls to be made of cast or buff stone. The window frames should be black anodized aluminum. The canopies and coping should be dark gray aluminum. And the landscaping pergola walls should be grade fieldstone. New condition B, and this is to provide greater depth to the architecture. In order to provide depth and articulation to proposed buildings, the applicant shall provide horizontal divisions to the wall panels, additional horizontal fenestration, a minimum of 6 inches of depth between the face of the pilaster and panels above the glazing, a minimum 6 inches of recess between the glazing and the face of the panels, a minimum of 2 feet between the middle massing and the adjacent sides of the buildings. So those would address the articulation and the materials of the architecture. We propose to clean up condition number 3 to remove this, what renderings we're addressing, and striking dated June 10th, 2025, and replacing that with as presented to the Building and Planning Committee on September 10th, 2025, which would be today. Those are the drawings I showed. And then striking condition number 7 in its entirety. Happy to answer any questions relating to that mouthful.
Okay, thank you. Just to be clear, Mr. Brosman, do you have anything you need to say on the preliminary plan stage, or are you okay? Okay, fine. All right, thank you, Chris. Questions, comments on this one? I'm sorry, Commissioner Woodring.
Thank you, Commissioner Grimes. So just want to provide a little bit of additional context to the new conditions of approval. I think when this came before us about a little over a month ago before we tabled it, there were a couple of commissioners that expressed concern over the architecture then. And so we provided some feedback to staff, which was then provided to the applicant, and the applicant was receptive in trying to enhance the architecture as much as possible. And so it is a very difficult massing to deal with, right? The minimums outlined in our code create a really strong design challenge. And so with that, I think the feedback that was given and the progress that has been made thus far, just about gets us to the finish line. And these additional conditions of approval kind of get us there. And, I do want to thank the applicant and his team for having that open dialogue, because not necessarily we don't have, the ability to necessarily enforce some of these things in terms of crafting architecture and whatnot, right? So, and with that, the spaces around the architecture themselves are ways to promote walkability. So if you want walkability, what you need to do is provide nodes of activation along where you want that walkability, right? And so I think that this project truly achieves that. Yes, there's a little bit underwhelming that it's not something a little more large scale and robust, but nevertheless, I think this is going to help enhance the City Avenue district. And so with that, again, thanks to the applicant and his team for being receptive on those comments. And I think this is important to emphasize that there was an ongoing dialogue. There was a collaboration on this front. And so I don't see a need to go through the tentative sketch process. These conditions help continue that conversation beyond today. And with that, I would encourage my colleagues to support this, and I do follow the lead of the ward commissioner in order to, not hold this process and see this development move forward. Thank you, Commissioner Grimes.
President Sinai.
Thank you, Commissioner Grimes. Chris, do you mind putting up the one of the earlier, ones that you showed that shows the site layout with the greening? I just wanted to take a minute because like some of my colleagues, I do also grieve for the loss of the 2022 plan, which had the virtue of having something really significant on an important corner. And that was very nice. But that I have done my morning, and I have moved on, and just wanted to say a minute about why I think this is actually beneficial for this area, because this is an area that over the years I've done a lot of thinking about for how do we activate it and how do we make it more pedestrian friendly. And I think there are really two things going on here, and you can see them in this picture. One of the things that we think about a lot is how do we get this site and the people in this office building to connect across the street to the shopping mall and to connect across the other street to what's going to happen at 123 Bala, which, if anything goes according to the plan there, really kind of intensifies right at that corner in the upper left of the screen, right? Like when that building sat by itself and there was a monumental sea of parking in front of it, no one crosses a parking lot to go anywhere, right? You have to find a way to make it connected. And one thing that this does is creates a sequence of little steps people take to induce them to go across. The other thing it does, and it's hard to see here because the sidewalks are big and they're in white, is that it adds a lot of shade trees across the places where people are going to walk. It makes it a more inviting voyage. There are trees here that look like they're in the middle of City Avenue on the lower right of your screen. They're not. They're next to the sidewalk. The sidewalk is just big enough that kind of reads like a lane of a street, right? But those are a whole row of street trees that are there, creating a nice frontage on City Avenue. They connect through the green space in the middle of the site past that restaurant space. They connect at the top end along the St. Asaph's road. I think when this gets planted and installed, it's going to actually make this feel a more pleasant place to go between. And we'll just actually start seeing more of that. We're not going to hop in our car and drive across the street to the shopping center, but maybe we'll walk there. Anyway, so I appreciate these improvements. I think, it's the second best thing for what I had hoped could happen here. Anyway, thanks, Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you. Other commissioner questions, comments? Okay, so I'll make a comment. Before we'll have to put a motion on the table and then go to public comment. So, yeah, I'm in support of the preliminary and development plan, but I do have concerns about the tentative sketch plan waiver. A waiver is not our normal procedure. Our normal procedure is to go through the tentative sketch process. And in this case, this application, this plan has changed. We've heard Chris discuss changes. There have been changes that Commissioner Woodring just discussed, changes to improve this design. But we're just bandied about and agreed today. The public has not seen these changes. The public, there has been, to the applicant's credit and also credit to our zoning requirements, there has been public discussion in this forum of this application and at the neighborhood club and elsewhere, but not of this design, which has been just approved today. And I think it's important, not just for residents, but for other businesses who might be interested, it's such an important place in the township to have transparency and to go through and have every opportunity that our code allows for comments. I think that the additional time involved to go through our normal procedure is fairly minimal, doesn't add a lot of time, and I think it benefits everybody to go through a procedure that allows those who have additional comments on the plan and on aspects of the plan to have an opportunity to comment when it's still at a meaningful stage. So I would ask that we consider not agreeing to that waiver, but agreeing to the other parts of this preliminary plan. So having said that, I don't know, did you want to make a motion, Commissioner Ross? Would you like me to do it? Okay. So I am going to move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of a preliminary land development plan for 1 Belmont Avenue in Ballackinwood. The plan shows construction of 3 commercial buildings and related improvements between the existing office building and Belmont Avenue. The proposed project includes a 14,724 square foot public gathering space, 2 new minor streets, and 226 surface parking spaces. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. And if we'll go to, unless commissioners have any other comments now, we'll go to public comment and then come back. Commissioner Gilder, you were giving me a quizzical look.
I don't know, I'm trying to follow where the additional conditions that Mr. Lesswing outlined are going to come into play.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but to be clear, I meant to approve the plan that of the conditions that Chris gave us tonight, if that satisfies what you said.
Yes, thank you.
With the exception of the waiver.
With the exception of the waiver?
Yes, that's what I said before I made the motion. I didn't mention the waiver. Commissioner Bernheim.
So just as a point of order, when you made the motion, I did not, and maybe I didn't hear you, understand you were doing it with the exception of the waiver. Therefore, that would have to be something subsequently moved for.
Yes, let's be clear. So, yes, you're correct. Because the waiver, my understanding is you have to expressly say the waiver. I did not.
Right.
So, since I mentioned transparency, for transparency purposes, I did not include the waiver because my intention was to exclude it.
Okay, all right. So that, I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Yes.
Technically, the last thing we did, where we made the motion with the exclusion in it up front, we probably should have made the motion and then had it separate, but it seemed pretty clear everybody was going to approve that anyway. So that being said, thank you for the clarity as to where we are.
Okay, so why don't we go to public comment?
I have a
Commissioner
procedural
Courtney.
question, and maybe I misheard your motion as well. And sorry to interrupt, but if the motion is to approve a preliminary plan, can we actually do that if we're not waiving tentative sketch? Don't we need to have a tentative sketch first?
Well, I mean, I would say either council or Chris could answer that. What's in front of us tonight is the preliminary plan, and I would think if tentative sketch had to come first, we would have done this differently, because you can't, because we are asked tonight to waive tentative sketch. So, Matt, do you want to?
I'll defer to our solicitor or Chris, but.
Yeah, I mean, procedurally, it's a fair question. I think the waiver is related to procedure. It probably would be more appropriate to address the waiver first, or also address the waiver as part of the motion, if you are going to proceed to preliminary.
What? I think it's our land development process requires tentative sketch before preliminary plan. So if we're going to not waive tentative sketch, then I think we have to reject this tonight.
Well, Chris, you want to comment on that?
So,
Just from experience, I think procedurally we've always dealt with the waiver first and then moved on to the plan itself.
Okay.
So we have to grant the waiver to even be able to accept the plan.
Yes. Yes. Presumably you don't call this tentative sketch.
Well,
you could call it tentative. If you deny the waiver of tentative sketch, this plan would fulfill the requirements of tentative sketch. The applicant would then resubmit in a few months, be back to you with exactly the same plan with some cleanup to some of the graphics and such like that.
Okay. Thank you.
This plan that's before you fulfills all the requirements of preliminary plan.
Right.
For stormwater, traffic, landscaping zoning.
So I hate to do this. but-
Well,
so
here,
should-
can we, hold on, Commissioner Bernheim, I was going to say, but Commissioner Gilda Kramer had her hand up first.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Right.
clarify. My apologies.
If what Chris says is what the process should be, then I would move that we waive tentative sketch for this matter.
So you're making an amendment, which would not be a friendly amendment in this case, so you're asking to amend the motion, correct?
Since your motion is on the
Yes.
table and it probably should have been withdrawn, I guess technically that's what
Okay.
I'm doing.
So, all right, so Commissioner Gilda Kramer has made, thank you, has made a motion to add in the waiver. So we'll now consider that motion, and I would say, Commissioner Bernheim, if your comment relates to that, this would be an appropriate time for that.
Right, because you just said add in. That motion stands by itself. To.
But it would be to
Right.
put it back, to have it, but if it succeeds, go into the full motion. The motion would now include the waiver. I think we all know what we're talking about.
Well, all minus one. So that I just want to clarify. The current motion on the table by Commissioner Kramer is to waive tentative sketch,
Correct.
full stop. And then we would go, if that's
Right.
granted, to
Yes.
the other motion. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Zella.
This makes sense to me. I support the move to amend from Commissioner Gilda Kramer. This is a downsized project. What's the point of taking a two-step process that's going to add months and cost? I don't see it, so.
President Sinai.
Thanks, Commissioner Grants. But it's
Excuse
not
me.
an amendment.
We already had a second before.
Yes. Sorry, so Commissioner Bernheim, you clarified that the motion on the table wasn't an amendment, it's just a question whether or not we are voting to waive tentative sketch, right? And then after that, we would move to the question of approving preliminary plan. Right? That's why I understand the motion to be. Maybe Commissioner Kramer can.
That was my
Okay.
intention.
Okay.
Not for the amendment, it was intended as a standalone motion.
Yeah.
But because there was already a motion on the table, Commissioner Grimes viewed it as being an amendment.
Okay, so just for a matter of process, let's all make sure we know what we're doing here. And maybe the township secretary can advise us on whether this has to be an amendment or not.
I mean, to me, it's an amendment. You
That's what
are
I think.
amending
A motion.
Commissioner Grimes' original motion to include approving the waiver of the tentative sketch.
So I will observe that I suspect that however we do it, the outcome is going to be the same.
Yeah, probably.
So maybe we can just do this as the amendment. Commissioner Zoloff was right in his language. And the amendment was your second still holds as if it was an amendment. Okay, so.
I'll re-second it again.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that was the first point. The second is, I appreciate the concerns about transparency and process. I think they're important. I think there are two things that are kind of working for us in working for the waiver in this case. One, Commissioner Zoloff already said, which is, we've gone through land development issues on this site before. The second is that we can simply just not put this on consent for the Board of Commissioners meeting, and that would give an opportunity for this will be voted against, and the public will be able to weigh in just a week from now. And that's a way of just doing a little bit more, because some of these plans just showed up, and that's the usual amount of time that people have to view them, and certainly that's something we can just choose to do, is not put on consent. Thank you, Commissioner Grimes.
Anyone else? Commissioner Stevenson.
As I said, I wasn't going to say anything else. I do agree that community input is important, and I think that to shortchange, as much as I will support this project, I do think that the process to ensure that the community had a chance to do that is important. So I think all remedies that we can have to ensure that whether it's the civic or other interest parties that are in the community are given that opportunity for feedback and input, we should encourage that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to, commissioners who wish to comment on this amendment? I think I already made my comments on this. I think everyone understands it. I would just respectfully take a different view than Commissioner Zelov's comments in that this plan that we're seeing tonight and the design has not been, it wasn't here even 48 hours ago. And I don't, I do appreciate that it delays the project somewhat if this were to be approved, and I regret that anyone's project would be delayed, but I also believe that as a board, we owe it to the community particularly in this location and to as a gateway to the township to give this as much air and light to invite comments before it's a done deal, at least officially a done deal. So having said that, I think everyone understands my position. So my understanding is we will vote on the amendment and then we will take public comment on the entire, however it comes out. So all those who are in favor of Commissioner Kramer's amendment, which would be to include the waiver, raise your hands signifying aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I get 8. All opposed? I get 4 opposed and 1 commissioner's not here. So the amendment carries. We now will go to the, back to the main motion as it's now amended. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment on this? If so, would you please come up to this podium? And for those who have not offered comments before, we ask you to start by saying your name and the neighborhood you live in, and try and keep your comments within about 3 minutes, please.
My name is Bob Handler. I live across the street at Sutton Terrace. We've been monitoring this process for a very long time, and 2 of us are here because we had no idea where things stood at the present time. It's been very difficult for us to really track what's going on. I appreciate the request for transparency, or your statement about that. We really would like that. And I want to second Commissioner Sinai's appreciation of the improvement that this will make to the property. I do want to say that there is considerably more trees there at the corner, the southwest corner where the bank will be. There are a lot of trees there right now that are going to be going away, and from the drawing it was very hard to see that there are going to be many trees. They're there, but it's hard to appreciate that. So I think if we could see more of the plans, have an opportunity to comment, it would be very much appreciated for those of us who live right there. The last piece, and I don't know if it's appropriate for here, but it would be nice to have some understanding about what's going to happen with the roundabout in terms of the property and being able to cross the streets. That's still the biggest concern for us on top of this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Brian Fenstermaker, and I'm here with the representing City Ave District. Obviously, I've been at the district for about 4 years, and so this parcel has been in the forefront. I believe I had hair and no glasses at that time, but now I am with glasses. And so anyway, so it has been a process, and I think what we need to understand is that these 2 corners, we have a wastewater treatment plant, we have a gas station, a vacant Chili's, and then the project before us. If you look back 4 years ago when I did my research coming into this job, at those 2 corners were supposed to be high taller office tower buildings. That is done and gone, and that would have been my preference, right? But here we are today at a different environment and different time. The applicant has been before the Planning Commission with very similar and been working hard with the township, has actually come to us as well on a number of factors to make sure that the connectivity. I loved hearing about the interest of the farmers market. glad to hear that people are struggling and fighting to get it into different places. But anyway, I think we do support this as a district. I think it is amenable to what we're trying to do for the township as a whole in our district here. And I think this is a suitable piece to the next steps for our evolution in this district. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment on this matter? Seeing any?
No one
Okay.
has their
No one online, okay. So we will have a vote on the motion to approve the preliminary land development plan. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Are there any opposed? See none. Any abstentions? See none. Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
May I make a recommendation that we still not put it on the consent? I think that's probably like within our discretion as board officers anyway, but like, just so we have it out in here, I think, it would be useful if the applicant, provided some of these design documents and, we had a chance, the community has a chance to see them. Yeah.
Well, that's not really a formal motion, so
It's
I
not,
guess
yeah.
it's up to you now. You can consult with the board.
I just want to say it out loud when everyone's here. Okay, thanks. I think we'll do that. Okay. Okay.
If you need an introduction, let me know.
Okay.
Can I just ask for clarification? So just the land development won't be on consent?
Correct.
The conditions? Okay.
All right, so moving right along, the next matter is the authorization of a grant application for the Main Line Greenway. This is found on page 123, and I am going to, before Chris comes up, I am going to move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution authorizing the township to submit a grant in the amount of $15,000 to Pennsylvania Environmental Council 2025 Cycling Activation Mini Grant Program for the Main Line Greenway. Is there a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. Chris, did you want to say anything, or are you quitting while you're ahead?
I'm just going to put a plug in for our new member of the sustainability team who actually discovered this grant, and I think it was one of the goals of expanding the sustainability manager's position. Eric from that office found this grant. We worked together, building, planning cooperated. We put this grant together, and we hope to get some additional money to implement the signage.
Great, thank you. So, questions or comments? Commissioner Zelloff, please.
Thanks, Commissioner Grimes. Chris, is this the first time we're seeing the signs and their size on page 129 of our packet?
I believe this was in a previous agenda when we applied for another grant that we didn't get, but we had previously put that in. We haven't made a public presentation on that. I think that evening there was an awful lot going on, much like there was tonight, but staff hasn't done a full presentation of that, but the information has been provided to the board.
Because I've had concern about the size of signage. I think small signs will be very effective. And it looks like these are relatively small signs, except the signs at the beginning and the end.
Correct.
And I think last time you told us they can't be co-located on another pole, which it's hard to accept that. But if that is the case, then these small signs look good.
It's just a lot of poles, a lot of signs. One of the things that we've learned through this process is that when we began the process, we were hoping that we could take small signs, almost medallions, and put them on stop signs and put them on yield signs. There's Pennsylvania law prohibits against adding to traffic control devices, so those signs are not available. A lot of the signs that we see are traffic control devices. But if we have a no parking sign, they're certainly eligible. There will be signs attached to those.
So we will co-locate where we can?
Where we can, we will.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Grant. I recently got a bike, and I found your map on the Komoot app, and my memory isn't great. So when are these signs going in? Because it is hard to follow.
Where are they going in?
Yes.
If this grant is received, and we have the money to do it, this would be the southern section of the Main Line Greenway, the southern eastern section. So it would run from Haverford College to Linwood Park, back through South Ardmore Park, over back behind the Wynwood Shopping Center, over into the Borough of Narberth. Borough of Narberth pays for their own signs. They've been partnering with us. We come out Borough of Narberth by Marion Elementary School, over.
You've already lost me on the path. When are the signs going up?
When? As soon, if we get this grant, they could go in within several months. It's not a very big project.
Spring?
We get the grant?
This grant's for like 35 grand. We could also just add it in the CIP, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we have all the specs, we just put, and it's a very small project, it wouldn't take, it would take a few months.
Totally off topic and selfish. Thank you, Commissioner Grimes.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Is there any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Seeing none. Any abstentions? Seeing none. The motion carries. Next are the approvals of the certificates of appropriateness. I am going to suggest, because I'd like to make a brief comment on the first one, 527 Old Lancaster, that we do that separately. Would anyone like to do either the Black Rock Road or West Lancaster Avenue one separately? Okay, so let's start with 527 Old Lancaster Road. I am going to move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of a certificate of appropriateness as recommended by the Historical Architecture Review Board at their meeting held July 1 and September 2, 2025 for 527 Old Lancaster Road, Haverford Station Historic District 2509. Approval to demolish a dwelling which is a contributing resource in the Haverford Station Historic District and to construct a new dwelling. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. So Greg, I'm not going to ask you to make a comment unless you'd like to, but do you have a picture of this that you can put up?
Yes, Commissioner, I do.
I just want to comment briefly for various reasons on this. This is an application that I've now moved to approve the demolition of a dwelling which is a contributing resource and replace it with a new dwelling. I looked at this, as Greg well knows because he was very patient with me, with very skeptically. The property was sold maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and when the applicant went to make structural improvements, found that the structure was bad and unstable, which raised a question in my mind about whether this might have been a neglected property, which was caused the town, basically demolition by neglect. What I've learned from this is that essentially some bad repairs were done years ago, which probably led to the condition that it had to be demolished. But the reason why I wanted to mention it are twofold. I think that the applicants, my understanding of the design proposed, that it is very faithful to, and I'm looking at you, you can shake yes or no if you disagree, but very faithful to what is there now, the reconstruction, but will be better with minimal improvements like HVAC, because everyone needs HVAC these days and things like that, which are acceptable. So to the current owner's credit, they've done what they need to do to bring a property that will remain contributing, but also the HARB went through several meetings and discussions of this, including an on-site visit, and it illustrates how the members of the HARB worked very hard and diligently, as did our staff, to do the right thing in this case. So personally, I feel comfortable recommending approval, but I thought it was important to single out to note the good job done by the HARB, by staff, and also what will be done by the owners of this property. So that's all I had to say on this. I don't know if anyone else, Commissioner Stevenson.
I promised my last time. This is in my ward, and you summarized it well. I will say that I visited this property with the owner. I've inspected it, and it is in a bad shape. However, I will say that the owner has done a lot of due diligence to try to work with the neighbors, but also work with HARB. But more importantly, try to maintain, if you look to the right, to the home to the right, they even tried to see how they could replicate those kind of things. So there was a lot of work that went into it. It wasn't like they tried to just tear it down, build up some McMansion and move forward. They were very sincere about the work, and several times, not once, twice, but several times, they were rejected for the plans that they brought forward, and each time they came back to, whether it was HARB or to the Planning Commission or whatever they were asked to do, they did. So I will say that I would support this, and it will improve this community. That picture right there shows how it looked, but that doesn't even do justice for that. So I do support it, and thank you for Greg for the work you've done for it with them and the rest of the township to bring this up to this point.
Thank you. Commissioner Zoloff.
Just to add what Commissioner Stevenson has said, this owner came to the Haverford Civic Association twice, provided tremendously detailed information, explained that there is no insulation in the property, and wondered how the prior owner was even able to live there. And the Haverford Civic Association was enthusiastic in their support for its demolition.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, okay. Is there any public comment on this? Oh, Greg.
I just briefly want to mention, you're correct, Commissioner Grimes, that this is a difficult property. The new house will, and I want everyone to understand, the new house will be larger than the present house. It was designed over multiple refinements to replicate the kind of form of the existing building as well as the neighboring homes, but it will be taller, it will be on a larger footprint. It does expand over the setback lines, which is what required zoning hearing board approval. The current house also goes over those setback lines. It was built long before any kind of zoning regulations were in place. But I just want everyone to understand this won't be an in-kind rebuild of this house. It will be, it has been designed for present-day markets, and through those refinements and multiple HARB meetings, it will, HARB believes, fit in well with the historic district.
Thank you. All right. Now we'll go to public comment. Anyone have public comment on this matter? Ma'am, if you don't mind coming up and just identifying yourself, your name, the neighborhood you live in, and if you'd like to make a few comments.
Hi, I'm Julie Figures. I am the owner, along with my husband, of this property. And I just wanted to thank everyone, especially Greg, for the help. It's been a long trip to get here. Commissioner Zoloff, Commissioner Stevenson, everyone's been terrifically helpful. Haverford Civic Association. When we bought the property, we thought we would fix it up, put a pretty kitchen in it, sell it. Well, that didn't work out. And it's been a very long trip. We bought it in July of 2024, or actually, we settled in June. We bought it in May of 2024. It's been a very long time. So I thank you for your interest, and I thank you for your vote.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Public comment? Commissioner Kramer, do you want to make public comment? Jody, anyone? Okay. All right. So we'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I will now move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the following certificates of appropriateness as recommended by the Historical Architectural Review Board at their meeting held July 1 and September 2, 2025. 1017 Black Rock Road, Gladwin Historic District 25-21. Approval to partially pave the front yard of a non-contributing resource within the Gladwin Historic District with a vehicular turnaround area citing Secretary of Interior Standards 9 and 10. And 30 to 38 West Lancaster Avenue, Ardmore Commercial Historic District 25-16. Approval to modify an unapproved membrane roof installation above the front cornice with a subcommittee to review detailed drawings before the beginning of work. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. Any commissioner questions, comments on either of these applications? Seeing none. Is there any public comment? Seeing no one online, I assume. Okay. Okay. Is there something you're looking to say? Okay. So we will call the vote on these two. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Seeing none. Any abstentions? Seeing none. The motion carries. Now we will move, the reappointment to the HARB on page 157. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the reappointment of Donna Lyle and Brian Home to the Historical Architectural Review Board for 5-year terms to expire September 2030. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. Commissioner comments, questions on this? Can we refer back to Commissioner Gavrin to what you said earlier? Good. Anyone else? Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Seeing none. Any abstentions? Seeing none. The motion carries. Next, we have a reappointment to the Historical Commission on page 158. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners reappointment of Melanie Pilch to the Historical Commission for a 5-year term to expire April 2030. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. Any commissioners wish to make question or comment other than referring to Commissioner Gavrin's comments earlier? Seeing none. Any public comment on this application? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? See none. Any abstentions? See none. The motion carries. The next is reappointment to the Uniform Construction Code Appeals Board. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners appointment of Ross Accione and Tim Lyle to the Uniform Construction Code Appeals Board for 5-year terms to expire October 2029. Is there a second? Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Rossman. Any questions or comments on this? Yes, Commissioner Zeloff.
Commissioner Grimes, are Tim and Donna Lyle related? We just approved Donna Lyle for the HARB, and we have Tim Lyle on the Uniform Construction Code Appeals Board.
Yeah, I don't know. I can check their addresses, but off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay. Thought someone might know them.
I could refer you to Commissioner Gavrin's comments earlier.
Jody will let us know.
Yes, okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, or any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. And the next is reappointment to the Zoning Hearing Board. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners a reappointment of Anthony Vale to the Zoning Hearing Board for a 3-year term, such term to expire February 2028. Commissioner Zeloff, I assume you're seconding?
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner questions, comments? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'll give you a chance to vote. This is on the reappointment of Anthony Vale to the Zoning Hearing Board. That's a vote. Thank you. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And the last item, as I said at the beginning, is just for information only, and that will presumably be considered in October. So, President Sinai, that concludes the business of building and planning tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Grimes. One last thing before we finish for the evening, and that is Commissioner Zeloff has an announcement.
Thank you, President Sinai. It's a busy week in Bryn Mawr. We had Bryn Mawr Day this past Saturday. Tomorrow evening at 6:30 in front of the Bryn Mawr Firehouse will be the 24th annual September 11th recognition and remembrance ceremony. It's outside. North Marion Avenue will be closed, and there will be seating. It will be a short ceremony. It will be less than an hour. There will be music. There will be remarks. There will be some videos. It is a moving ceremony, and it's appropriate and important that we remember the lives lost on 9/11, 24 years ago, and we have, I greatly thank Bryn Mawr Fire Company for putting this ceremony on each and every year, and encourage all in our community to attend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zoll. Commissioner Rossman.
I'd like to announce remind everyone regarding Bala Kinwood, probably the nicest neighborhood in Lower Marion Township. The friendliest and tonight most active. That we have a wonderful Bala Avenue of the Arts walk on Sunday. A lot of TV coverage, if anyone's interested. I'm not sure. But there'll be vendors, there'll be art exhibits, there's going to be food, there's going to be music, and a lot of good fellowship. So please come out and attend from 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. And I think there's even a beer garden going to be there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rossman. So with that, we are done for the evening. Have a good night, everyone. Colleagues, if you're interested, we have a brief post board in the caucus room.
Not interested. Doesn't matter.
Then you don't have to go.
Can I ask?
Because we're not voting, we're not getting a show of hands on anything, so.
Just ask how many last.